أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم، وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم، وجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How's everyone today?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله مولانا.
Good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Um, before we get into our lesson, feels like it's been a long time, just a week's break. Alhamdulillah, as we usually do, we'll just revise our sarf, our mazid fi skills, and then we'll get into a bit of Nahwu, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, right? So everybody can just say with me, we'll do the 9 mazid fi skills that we learned, right? So everybody, bismillah. 1, 2, 3. فعل يفعل تفعيلا مفعل مفعل فعل لا تفعل. Third scale. فاعل يفاعل فعالا مفاعلة مفاعل مفاعل فاعل لا تفاعل. Fourth scale. أفعل يفعل إفعالا مفعل مفعل أفعل لا تفعل. First scale. تفعل يتفعل تفعلا متفعل متفعل تفعل لا تتفعل. Sixth scale, sorry. تفاعل يتفاعل تفاعلا متفاعل متفاعل تفاعل لا تتفاعل. Seventh scale. انفعل ينفعل انفعالا منفعل منفعل انفعل لا تنفعل. Eighth scale. افتعل يفتعل افتعالا مفتعل مفتعل افتعل لا تفتعل. Ninth scale. افعل يفعل افعلالا مفعل افعل لا تفعل. 10th scale. استفعل يستفعل استفعالا مستفعل مستفعل استفعل لا تستفعل. Right, and those were our 10 mazid fi skills. We're just saying them as a form of repetition so that we don't forget them, that our minds remain able to recognize them when we do come across them, right? So that's the intention with which we're just simply revising those skills. We then move on to our Nahwu bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So again, Nahwu, we were dealing with the functions of words in sentences primarily, and how that affects the hal. We then said we were going to look at each of the 3 halat that nouns find themselves in: halatul raf', halatul nasb, halatul jarb. And we're going to look at each of the functions that are fulfilled by those halat respectively. We started off with raf', halatul raf', and we created for ourselves a list of things or functions that are fulfilled by halatul raf. The first one that we looked at was the fa'il. Second one that we looked at was the naibul fa'il, right? Then we moved on from there to the khabar. We said that the mubtada and the khabar get fulfilled by that as well as the ismu kana and the khabaru inna, right? We completed our lessons on number 1 and number 2, the fa'il and the naibul fa'il. We said in terms of our order, we're going to look at the khabar first and then the mubtada, right? And that's where we find ourselves currently. In our lesson on the khabar, we recalled a number of things. What is it that we recalled? First, that we just brought to mind the idea or the two major sentence structures that we knew from before, right? A jumla ismiyya, jumlatun ismiyatun, and jumlatun fi'liyatun, right? Just to recall the structure, that the idea of a mubtada and a khabar, they only factor into a jumla ismiyya, right? Not a jumla fi'liyya. When we have a jumla fi'liyya, then we're looking for a fa'il or a na'ib. We're looking for a fi'l and then a na'ibul fa'il or fa'il, depending on the type of fi'l that we have, and maybe a maf'ul as well. However, when we have a jumla ismiyya, we're looking for a mubtada and a khabar. A mubtada and a khabar. And we said both the mubtada as well as the khabar, they get fulfilled by halatul rafa. However, just to give ourselves a little bit of an understanding of what they are, we said that the mubtada is the focus of the sentence, right? It's what the sentence wants to tell you something about, or the subject of the sentence. The khabar is the information, and literally that's what khabar translates as, information. Khabar is the information about the focus of the sentence. It's what the sentence wants to tell you about the thing that is the mubtada, right? Or we can call it the predicate. At the end of our last lesson, we were looking at the various types of khabar. That we said that the khabar can take on 5 forms, right? Either in our sentence, there is a single word that we will call the khabar of the sentence, right? There's a khabar, or there's one type of khabar where a single word will be called the khabar of the sentence. And we gave 2 examples of that. And there were more examples that we could give of this as well. There are more examples of this that we could give. But the example that we had, or the 2 examples that we had here, was ar-rajulu tawilun. If we look at that sentence, ar-rajulu is the mubtada, tawilun is the khabar. The second example that we had of that was ar-rajulu imamul masjidi. Ar-rajulu imamul masjidi. The man is the imam. What's a good translation? Yeah, the leader, the imam of the masjid. The first word imam will be called, ar-rajul will be the mubtada, the word imamu will be the khabar, and the word al-masjidi will just be mudafun ilayh to the word imam, right? And there are other examples that we could use like this, like a mawsuf sifa construction. Like for example, if I said al-waladu talibun dhakiyun. Al-waladu talibun dhakiyun. The boy is a diligent student. The word al-waladu would be the mubtada, talibun would be the khabar, and dhakiyun would be the sifa for the khabar. Right? That's just another example where the khabar is one word, but the construction is a mawsuf sifa. So we had three constructions there. Either it's literally just a single word, or it's the first part of a mudafun ilay construction. That will be our khabar. Or we had the example that I just gave you now. The first part of a mawsuf sifa construction can also be the khabar. Right. Any questions on that? Are there any questions on that?
No, Mulana. Just maybe it's old news, but it's I found that if you can have a complete sentence, and the word after is or are, using the word after is or are, then the word immediately after is or are will be the khabar. If you can't,
That's
then
precisely it.
it's the rest of the sentence.
That's precisely it. That's a good principle to employ to identify the khabar. Right. Then we had 4 other types of khabars where the khabar in the sentence is not just one word. And when the khabar isn't just one word, then we will say that there's no visible khabar in a rafa in the sentence. We're not going to say any single word is the khabar. Rather, the whole construction will be called the khabar, but what is inside that construction, we will deconstruct it according to the the construction that it is. And we had 4 types of constructions here: harful jar and ismul majroor, a dharf and a mudafun ilay. Listen clearly, we didn't say mudaf and mudafun ilay, right? We said dharf and mudafun ilay, right? Do you know what's a dharf? Remind me.
Date, a time, place.
Right, it's an adverb of time or place. Right? An adverb of time or place. So a dharf and a mudafun ilay, then the khabar could be a verbal sentence, or the khabar could be another nominal sentence. What do we mean by nominal sentence? A jumla ismiya. The khabar could be a jumla fi'liya, or the khabar could be a jumla ismiya as well. And let's look at an example of each of those. الرجل في البيت. The man is في البيت, in the house. Right? في is a harful jar, and it must have ismul majroor connected to it. So that whole thing will be my khabar. If I ask you, what hal is al-bayti in? You'll tell me al-bayti is in halatul jar. Why is al-bayti in halatul jar? Because it's ismul majroor. Right? What's the sign that it's in halatul jar? It has a kasra at the end. Al-kasratu al-dhahira, if you want to call it. Parent kasra. Then we had the example of dharf and mudaf ilayh. الرجل أمام البيت. الرجل أمام البيت. The man is in front of the house. The man is in front of the house. If I ask you, what hal is the word أمام in? Or الرجل, you'll tell me الرجل is in حالة الرفع, it is the mubtada. What hal is أمام in? أمام is in حالة النصب. Why? Because it's a ظرف. But like I said, that rule of the ظرف we might still come to learn. And the sign that it's in nasb is the fatha, that I can see the amama. What hal is al-bayti in? Al-bayti is in halatul jar. Why is al-bayti in halatul jar? Al-bayti is in halatul jar because it's a mudafun ilay. What's the sign that it's a mudafun ilay, or that it's in halatul jar? The sign is the kasra that is apparent there. Al-bayti. Did I call any single word a khabar? Both in the example of fil bayti, I didn't call anything the khabar. In amam al bayti, there was no word that I called the khabar there either. The whole construction is the khabar. Second one, the whole construction is the khabar. Let's look at the next sentence, number 4. الرجل نصر الولد. الرجل is a noun. It's at the beginning of a sentence, so it's the mubtada. نصر الولد. نصر is a fi'l ماضي. It's we're not going to say that it's in any one of the halat of the nouns. Right? It's a verb. Now my mind must switch. Okay, I see a verb, so what am I looking for? I'm looking for the fa'il. Who's the fa'il? I look either at the end, there's nothing at the end. I look to the left, there's nothing on the left because al-walada is in nasb. Then I look inside, is huwa, referring back to ar-rajulu. Ar-rajulu nasara. The man, he helped. Who did he help? Al-walada. He helped the boy. So al-walada is going to be ma maf'ulun bihi. And it's in halatun nasb, as you can well see over there. Why is it in halatun nasb? Because it's the maf'ulun bihi. How do I know that it's in halatun nasb? Well, I can see what's the sign. I can see the fatha. Next example. This one might get a little bit more tricky, and that's why I want to look at it before we move on. الرجل أمه طويلة. الرجل أمه طويلة. What does it say? الرجل, the man. أمه طويلة. His mother is tall. His mother is tall. Now, work with me. I'm going to break down the sentence. What hal is الرجل in? Somebody tell me.
It's in Raf, no?
Raf.
Hal to raf. Good. Why?
The mubtada of the
Mubtada.
sentence.
Because it's the mubtada of the sentence. Good. Right. What hal is ummuhu in? Or ummu. Ummu. The word ummu.
Also rough.
Also raf. We can see it as the u at the end. Why is the word ummu in a raf?
Is it not the start of a new jumlatul
Right.
ismiya?
Right. So it is. So the start of a jumla ismiya we call what? So it's also a mubtada. Right. The word who. What hal is that in? Ummuhu.
In Raf. But
So
the
we have one
who
word.
is Mabri.
The mother of him. It's in
The mother of him, right? So what construction is that?
that's a possessive phrase.
There we go. Mudaf.
Mudaf ilayh.
Mudaf, mudaf ilayh. Right. So you must remember that that's a rule. If ever you have a pronoun attached to a noun, it's going to form a mudaf, mudaf ilayh. Right? You can see it's a light word. So his mother, the mother of him. So ummu, I'm going to call a mubtada. Who I'm going to call a mudafun ilayh. I just attached to that mubtada. Then tawilatun. What hal is that going to be in? You can see the hal tawilatun. It's also in a raf.
Rough.
Why?
It's the khabr of
The sifa.
second mubtada.
It's a sifa to the mubtada.
Okay, let's see. Let's interrogate whether it can be a sifa. If it was sifa, then what would it be sifa for?
Is that also not another khabar, Maulana?
Rajulu.
Yes, it is.
Ah,
But I want to ask. I'm asking the question. Why? How do I know that it's not a sifa?
because it doesn't, the ends must match gender, ending, number.
Right.
Definiteness.
And
Must match.
the only thing here that it could be a sifa for is the word right? But is a feminine word. So we can see, okay, tawilatun and do agree in gender. However, here is a definite word and tawilatun is indefinite. Right? Can you see that? Not ummun, ummuhu. That's a definite word, and tawilatun is indefinite. So they don't agree in definiteness. Not mudaf. It's not a mawsuf. So this is the mubtada.
Is it definite because of the mudaf ilayh construction?
Yes. This is my khabar. But what is it the khabar for? For which sentence is it the khabar? It's the khabar for this mubtada here. Ummuhu tawila. His mother is tall. It's the khabar for ummuhu, for that sentence. What's the khabar for the sentence starting with this? That mubtada. This whole thing here. This whole thing here is the khabar for that mubtada. You follow? So we have a nominal sentence within a nominal sentence. I have a jumla ismiya within a jumla ismiya. The mubtada is a singular word, and the khabar is a whole nother jumla ismiya. So though there is a word in the sentence that I call the khabar, there is a word in the sentence that I call the khabar, that being the word tawilatun. It's only the khabar for this, if I want to call it a minor mubtada. Whereas the whole sentence is the khabar of the major sentence. That's it, understood?
Yes, Maulana.
Yes, Maulana.
Okay. So now for homework, what did we do for homework? I think I said to just do
Number 12. I think.
12, Malana.
first 12 of the examples, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Now tell me, are there any specific ones that you want me to go through? Or rather, wait, before we do that, what I want you to do is go into your groups now, inshallah, right? And then work through the remaining 12. And if you, and then we'll come back and we'll do from all of them, we'll look at a few of them, right? So we're going to break into our breakout groups now. What do I want you to do in this exercise? Well, the instruction says just translate the following, but I want you to translate it whilst focusing on what the khabar is. And I want you to tell me what is the khabar. So I'm going to ask you that for a few of them. What is the khabar? Right? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Breakout groups opening now, inshallah. How many rooms? Sorry, I created the groups already. Just Yes, no problem. Is everyone back?
No.
Mulana, you had high expectations of us if you expected us to get all 12 done.
No. As much as you could. I just wanted to go through maybe one or two of them with you before the end of this class. So that I can see that everybody's on the right track.
Maulana, I
So,
have a couple of questions.
Bismillah, go for it.
So the number 3, the exercise number 3, so that one, we thought, it says, these are the verses of the book, the clear. That was the translation we managed to find.
These
So
are the
we
verses
thought
of the
book, the clear.
No,
Okay.
Saira, the clear book.
The clear book. Okay, the clear book.
yeah.
Yes, the clear book. Yes. In that one, we were struggling with. We thought the Khabr is Ayatul Kitab al Mubin. We thought that the entire section is the Khabr. So Tilka
Good.
is the Mubtada. It's the Ismul Ishara, I think.
That's the Mubtada, yes?
And then Ayatu is Ayatul Kitabi. We said we looked at it like in terms of its i'rab, it's mudaf and mudaf ilayh.
Okay, but remember, nothing gets a hal because it's mudaf.
Right.
Right. So what will this be?
So then
The
you say
Khabr.
because
Ayatu.
it has
First
to
tell
be
me. Ayatu is in which hal?
rough
Raf. Why?
because it's the khabar.
Khabar.
Because it's the khabar.
So it's not the entire section. It's just ayatu.
Well, okay, let's see now. It's just the word ayatu. It's one word. Then this word al-kitabi is mudaf and it's connected to it. And this word al-mubin is a sifa for the kitab. So it's connected to that.
True.
But there is a single word in the sentence that I call the khabar. That's ayat. Tilka ayatu. Like we had ar-rajulu imamul masjidi, and imamu was the one word that we call the khabar. Similarly, in this case, ayatu is the one word that we call the khabar. The word al-kitab is attached to it by being its mudafun ilayh, and the word al-mubin is attached to kitab by being its sifa.
Okay. Okay, no. That makes it much more clearer. Shukran Maulana. So there was a couple more others that we weren't sure about.
Can I just ask a question about that one quickly?
Okay, bismillah, go for it.
Maulana, were you saying ayat 2 is the mubtada?
Right.
Yeah, I thought that.
Sorry, no, ayatu is the khabar. Ayatu is the khabar.
Is the khabar.
Yes.
And then, okay, and tilka is the mubtada. Okay.
Tilka is the mubtada,
shukran.
ayatu is the khabar. Afwan.
Okay.
Maulana, tilka is ismul ishara, so it's mabni, right?
Yes.
That's why it's not in raf.
It is in a raf, but it doesn't show that it's in a raf.
Oh, okay. That makes it more clearer. Because I also skipped it fast, and then one of my sisters mentioned that it has to. That's the mubtada.
Right. So remember, just to clarify this, to remind everybody, a mabni word, it doesn't change. It can be in. It will always be in one of the hals. It just doesn't show. It doesn't have a sign. The sign isn't apparent, right? Because it stays the same. The others have a sign in that the dhamma at the end will change to a fatha, will change to a kasra, whereas the mabni words don't change. They are in the hal, but they don't change. So think of the hal is related to the function that the word is playing, right? The hal is related to the function that the word is playing. And then sometimes we generously have a sign that shows us the hal, but sometimes we don't have that.
Like number 13, for example.
Okay.
Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitab. We were stuck on that one too. We said that hamdu is your mubtada, and then it's alladhi your khabar.
Wait. First, let's work through the sentence step by step. Alhamdu is my mubtada.
Yes.
What do I have next?
لله.
Lillahi. What is that? Harful jar,
حرف الجر اسم
ismul
المجرور.
majrur. Right? Alhamdu lillahi.
نهي
All praise li for Allah.
الله.
Right.
So
Alladhi. What is alladhi doing in a sentence?
اسم
It's
موصول.
describing Allah.
It's describing Allah.
Describing Allah. So this here is a sifa for the word Allah, connected to the word Allah.
Ah,
Right? Alladhi. But we know alladhi is a it is a ismul mawsool.
Ismul
It must have
mawsool.
silatul mawsool. Right.
Silatul
So this
mawsool.
verb after it qualifies the alladhi.
yes.
Yes.
Anzala. He sent down. Right.
Yes.
What did he send down? This is my maf'ulun bihi for this verb, for the verb anzala. Maf'ulun bihi. Right. And this
Yes.
word ala abdihi, it's a harful jar,
حرف
ism
الجر
majroor and
اسم
mudafun ilayh.
مجرور.
and مضاف
And
إليه.
Yes.
right. So that whole construction is just, it's parentheses, it's extra information telling me whom the book was revealed upon.
Oh.
So it's not Khabr number 2.
So where's my khabar?
That's the
Lillahi.
question we had.
Right. So now let's
Lillah.
go back to our principles. What type of khabar is this here now?
Where's
Okay.
my
Harful
book?
jar ismu
Sorry.
majroor.
This is the harful jar ism majroor
الجر
example.
اسم المجرور.
So this construction here is my khabar. That's my khabar. And this whole thing here, الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب, is just qualifying or is telling me something more about Allah.
So is the whole construction the sifa or just the alladhi?
In terms of breaking it down, just the alladhi will be the sifa. But the sifa itself here in this context is a ismul mawsool. And the ismul mawsool must be followed by a silatul mawsool. So everything
Which
in it
is
is
anzala.
attached to each other, right? But we can break it down beyond calling just the whole thing. We don't just call the whole thing the sifa. But now what I want to point out to you in this is, yes, it's a complex sentence. But if we remember our principles, right, the very basic principles that we learned one step at a time, we'll be able to break down complex sentences into simple components and then understand precisely from there what the sentence is saying. Right? You might remember last year we were possibly doing man kasara al asnam, and then at times we were like just filling in things here and there just to make the sentence sound correct. Right? And most of the time we got it right. But if we know how to break the sentence down into its components correctly, then our understanding of what the sentence is saying will not just be coherent, but it will also be precise. Also be precise. So, that's what we're trying to build up our ability in. We're looking at these simple components, how they tie together to form more complex sentences, but we can identify the role of every single word in that sentence. Right? Okay. Let me just see. Is there another one that you want me to do? Let me check who's next.
Mona, I wanted to ask, in one of the other classes, we've heard of a concept called Khabr 1 and Khabr 2. And so that's why we were a little bit confused because I assume obviously it wasn't maybe in this homework, but is there a thing where you get 2 Khabrs? I think we've mentioned,
Yes.
in previous tafsirs or we were learned about it or heard
Yes,
it.
that certainly is a phenomenon. Let me see if there's any one of these examples. Okay, I'll give you an example. If I say وهو العزيز الغفور, I'm gonna write it down for you. وهو العزيز الغفور. What does that mean?
He is the Almighty, all forgiving.
Correct, right? هو is the مبتدأ, right? العزيز is the خبر. الغفور is what? You might consider that perhaps it's the sifa for Al-Aziz. But then we wouldn't translate it as he is the all powerful, the all forgiving. It would have to be something like he is the forgivingly powerful. No. So yeah, it's not a sifa. Yeah, it is a second khabar. Right? You can understand it as he is Al-Aziz and he is Al-Ghafur. So yeah, in this case, we'll call this mubtada. We'll call this your khabar number 1. And this one we'll call khabar number 2. Or what we call الخبر الأول and الخبر الثاني. Right? When it's not actually a sifa, it's not describing the first thing. It's just telling you another piece of information about the subject. Okay. Request, can we do number 15? Let's do number 15. So we have طائركم معكم. طائركم معكم. Let's look at it. طائركم. What do we have there?
Mudaf ilayh.
Okay, that's a mudaf ilayh, correct. But before we even go into mudaf ilayh, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of sentence is this? Jumla ismiya. Right. So what? It's a mudaf ilayh. But remember, a word doesn't get its hal from being mudaf. What does it get its hal from?
From being the mubtada or the khabar.
From being the mubtada, the khabar or something. So this one here is the mubtada. The kum is just attached to the mubtada. It's mudafun ilayh to the mubtada. It's not the khabar. Now, what's my khabar? Ma'akum is another mudafun ilayh. But this mudaf here, ma'a means with. The dharf. So we have a dharf and mudafun ilayh. So where's my khabar?
Ma'a.
Is it ma'a?
Ma'akum.
Didn't we say the whole dharf and mudafun ilayh? The whole thing will be my khabar. But I can look into it and say, well, the ma'a is a dharf and the kum is a mudafun ilayh. Right? It's ma'a is in nas because it's a dharf, and kum is in jar because it is a mudafun ilayh. But if I ask myself the question, what is the khabar in the sentence? I'll have to say the whole dharf mudafun ilayh construction, ma'akum. Right? And let's just go back to our types of khabars. Do I have that there? Yes. Type number 3, the dharf and mudafun ilayh. Okay, well, Irshad has joined us now. So what I want you to do for homework is just go through this again, ensure that you are able to identify the khabar in all of them. And then at the beginning of our next lesson, inshallah, I'm going to go through them and I'm just going to highlight just what the khabar is. I'm going to just highlight to you what the khabar is, and you can dispute with me on that, inshallah, for the discussion, so that we can clarify, iron out any issues, and then we'll move on to the mubtada, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, right? So homework. I want you to go through the list and be able to identify all of the khabars, in addition to obviously completing the translation if you haven't done that yet. Right, so we'll end there for now.